Now, during the pandemic, the federal government has given billions of dollars to state and local governments to boost access to broadband internet. Yet many children in this country still can't connect for class. John Yang reports on the persistent digital divide. It's the first of two reports tonight as part of our Race Matters series.
So you're not going to say she, you're going to say her. Are you going to say her or are you going to say she?
Tuesday morning at Francis Marion School in the central Alabama city of Marion. A handful of students are in class.
Some information in this speech is missing.
Officials suspended in-person learning last year because of the threat of coronavirus, but many students are still here 2 days a week because they can't get online at home, and neither can some of their teachers.
I would prefer to be at home, but my situation calls for me to be here.
English teacher Tempera Tucker.
I live in a very, very country type area in the suburban, way out in the country. So it is challenging for me. I can, especially with the Zoom, I could hear my students. They can hear me sometimes, but the connection was very, very off in the country.
You know, it's almost like we're like Mayberry RFD in 2021.
Kathy Trimble is the principal at Francis Marion, an overwhelmingly African-American pre-K through 12 school. 97% of the students receive free or reduced price lunches. In 2015, the school won an Apple grant and all 800 students received free iPads. Trimble says that was a great help when students were in school.
But when you have students who's going home, and it's almost like they're going out of the light into the darkness, because what it does is it prohibits them or blocks them off from the rest of the world. Without the internet, it was just like a book with no pages.
Marion is the seat of Perry County in central Alabama and home to a rich civil rights history that echoes today. In February of 1965, a white state trooper killed Jimmy Lee Jackson, a young unarmed black man, while Jackson was defending his mother during a voting rights demonstration. His murder inspired the Bloody Sunday March from Selma to Montgomery that sparked the passage of the Voting Rights Act. For years, the area has struggled economically, rural, poor, and on the dark side of the digital divide.
It's almost like we don't have a voice because it isn't heard. And it's almost like we're out in the woods and we're yelling and we're screaming, and because there's no one around, no one hears us.
Francis Marion senior Fanera Brown is one of those without a voice. Before the pandemic, she was on the dance and cheerleading squads and was a strong student. But at home, just 10 minutes from downtown Marion, she's often unable to get online and has fallen behind in her schoolwork.
It takes a long time for your assignments to load up. It jump a little bit, so you won't get all the way through, or it's gonna start you all the way over.
The pandemic has brought America's digital divide into sharp relief. For decades, it's been driven both by the cost of service and the lack of infrastructure. For private internet service providers, there's often too little financial incentive to fill gaps in coverage, particularly in hard-to-reach rural areas. And so millions of Americans like Fanera are left in the digital dark. Last year, Fanera's school used CARES Act funding to give her and her two brothers a Wi-Fi hotspot after deploying Wi-Fi-enabled buses to poorly served neighborhoods didn't work.
For every step that we took, we had to, in some instances, had to step back and rethink this and come up with a plan B. And now we're probably on plan C, D, E. I'm not sure where we are.
He's still having trouble logging on.
But most days, the hotspot is unreliable too, says Jesha Brown, Fanera's mother, who also depends on it for telehealth visits to manage her diabetes.
It's sketchy. It will pick up real good on some days, and some days it drags, or some days it won't pick up at all.
And it's not strong enough for all three children to get online for remote instruction, leading to incomplete assignments, slipping scores, and a lot of frustration.
It makes me upset. It's not being able to help them when I know that they can do their work, they know their work, and the only thing that's hindering them is the connection to the teacher.
The pandemic has highlighted just how intricately related lack of broadband access is to systemic inequalities.
Nicole Turner-Lee is director of the Center for Technology Innovation at the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C. Before COVID-19, she spent months traveling across the country documenting the lack of broadband access.
People of color, particularly African Americans and Latinas and people from tribal lands who are really struggling with a set of systemic inequalities, economic, socially, politically, educationally, that keeps them on the outskirts of educational achievement or employment achievement. They are really struggling by not being connected, and even more so today.
The Federal Communications Commission estimates that nearly 14.5 million Americans lack reliable broadband access, a number that's been steadily falling. But many say the way the FCC counts coverage is highly inaccurate and paints an overly rosy picture. Broadband Now, which researches connectivity across the country, estimates the number of disconnected Americans at 42 million. Microsoft says 157 million Americans, or about half the country, have slow or unreliable internet.
We're actually seeing learning losses attributed to kids that are not formally connected to any type of schooling. Among African American kids and Latina kids, it's almost upwards of a year where they will not have cognitive retention of basic skills. That is a travesty, because in essence, what we are suggesting is sort of the regurgitation of Brown versus Board of Education in the 1950s, where young people do not have the resources that they need to survive.
She says across the country, people like Kathy Trimble have been trying to address this massive problem through patchwork solutions like mobile hotspots, Wi-Fi buses, and in-school instruction for those who can't connect.
They're coming up with what I consider to be Band-Aid solutions to fill blind spots that in essence really is reflective of the fact that we have just broken our social contract in the United States when it comes to having everyone connected.
She and others hope that with the pandemic and a new administration in the White House, broadband access will be thought of as part of the nation's basic infrastructure, like roads, sewers, electricity, and health care.
Until internet is looked upon not as a luxury, but as a need, we're going to always have these veneers. We're going to always have these students, and we're going to always have this gap. And it's unfortunate that this digital divide is dividing us in a country that's already divided, but now there's another means of dividing us.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm John Yang.